Welcome to AI Bytes, where every week in under 15 minutes we talk about the latest discoveries in the world of artificial intelligence, particularly as it relates to the creative industries.
Today, we're going to discuss two new workflows that we found interesting on ComfyUI, and we're going to discuss an open letter titled Reflections on OpenAI.
Okay, Milad, what have we found interesting this week on ComfyUI?
So we've been playing around with two new workflows. So this user, they trained a new LoRa for transforming Google Earth screenshots into realistic drone photography. And you can use the result of that image to feed it into an image to video model. You can get results something like this. All right, we got this workflow up and running on InstaSD. We're not doing the image to video generation. We're just going from the 3D screenshot from Google Earth to the screenshot that you will be using, or the image that you will be using for your initial frame in the video. And you can use any video model you want from there to turn it into a video. One thing to note is that the user was using a proprietary LoRa called Bird's Eye View that we removed from this, and the results were still pretty good without that LoRa. So I took a little screenshot of our Vancouver harbor here, and I just wanted to see what it looks like when we run this through this model. So let me just run this quickly, and then we'll share the results side by side so you can see what it looks like.
Is that your yacht in the arbor, Milad? Is that the one you just bought
Yeah, I
recently?
have an standing offer on it, so I just want to see what it looks like before I buy it.
Okay.
Right off the bat, I made a mistake. I forgot to turn on the LoRa. But it's actually good to always test these new LoRas that come out and compare what context can do on its own without the LoRa. So I've seen a bunch of LoRa come out and people making claims that the LoRa does something specific, and then I turn and I run the same thing without the LoRa, and context is pretty powerful. And for most
Right.
part, context just does it right without the LoRa, so you don't need to waste your time. So in this scenario, this is what we get with context without the LoRa. You can see it tried to turn something 3D, but still struggles with a lot of the textures and generally not that great. So let's try it with the LoRa turned on.
And the main thing it does is basically just because I think what is it that Google Maps is doing in that image? It's kind of looks kind of flat.
It is kind of flat. I mean, it is a 3D representation that when you turn it on Google Earth, and it is kind of 3D because you can like obviously like you can look from the side, but it does look at the boats. They're all like flat. It's not the best 3D looking, but this what it does is tries to transform it into an actual realistic shot. Imagine like a drone shot of that scene.
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to do. You see, context kind of tried, and it got some of this stuff right. It just looks more realistic than the screenshot we fed in.
Yeah, but you can see from like it's really struggling with the boats on the right side of the image. They're still
Yes.
looking pretty flat. I wonder how that's going to be with the LoRa added.
So this is with the LoRa added. Looks a lot more realistic. Not all the boats are great. There's still some of them are flat.
But actually, the color is much more realistic.
The color is much better than it was, and the textures on the building is a lot better as well. And we can try another thing here as well. So I had skipped the upscale, so I'm gonna put that back in. So we're gonna feed this through Flux itself and with a low denoise and see if we can fix some of these issues that we
Right.
face here.
This would be great for anyone who, let's say, wanted to put together like real estate advertising shots, and you just want to like take a little, have some drone footage of the environment around, I don't know, a building you're trying to sell, or like maybe you're a realtor and you have a listing in this neighborhood and you want to showcase the neighborhood. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
this would
it
be a
obviously
great.
wouldn't be 100% accurate, but it will be a yeah, for a quick presentation, it will be a pretty good start, I think. All right, so you can see the denoise helped a lot. Like now the boats and
Boats are
they're
very
not
nice.
very nice. It's just generally the textures on the building has improved a lot, and so the second pass through Flux made things a lot better.
Except, did it change something? If
Yeah,
you
let's
zoom
do
in
it.
on some of the buildings, particularly around the roundabout,
Yeah, so it does change. It did change some stuff. Like here, it actually added some building
new
that doesn't
detail.
exist. Yeah, new detail, and yeah, this one is not
Yeah, the buildings changed
particularly.
a little bit.
Yeah, the buildings change a little. So we can probably play with the denoise of the first K sampler. Like right now, it's set at complete denoise. and you
Right.
might be able to get better results. And then maybe you can lower the denoise on this one to keep the buildings the same. Let me just see what it was before. So this was before the second denoise. So yeah, if you kept the denoise low, probably on the second pass, you'll probably get better results.
Yeah, but I see exactly that the buildings that it changed, they
Where
were
the
kind of
where the ones that
badly rendered.
yeah, exactly, they had trouble with it. But all in all, this is a solid and interesting use of context and interesting LoRa to be training on. Anyways, there was another workflow that you wanted to walk us through.
Yeah, let me bring it up. So this is quite the workflow here. It's a workflow that a user shared on Civet AI. Will link to his page, and it's pretty cool. There's a single input to this very complicated workflow, and that's all the way over here. So I've just got a simple image here. And again, we're using Flex context. So this is kind of the hot thing that everybody's experimenting with these days. We're using it to turn this image into a 360-degree panoramic image. All we're telling Flex Context is create a 360 HDR, and you don't really need to change this prompt at all. And all you care about is all the way over here. So here you can see that it basically created a whole lot of content around that original photo. Now, I could probably prompt for it to create something else. In this case, it basically placed this building kind of in the middle of mountains for some reason. It's
Hmm.
just I don't know how it picked up on that. I think it would have made a lot more sense if it was just a like a city square or something. But it is pretty neat that you can do this and then you get something like this, which is a pano shot. Now, the original image, it kind of had this blurry artifacts in it. It's kind of a motion shot. So I understand why it struggled with that. But it generally does a pretty good job of creating this 3D scene. I've found in my experimentation right around it struggles a little bit to stitch them together properly. But actually, in this case, it did a pretty good job. I'll show another example.
That's pretty interesting. Both workflows seem to have a lot of usage in real estate.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you put these together, you can actually create some interesting effects for, let's say, you can build a product around this more or less with a realtor potentially throwing in a few of their listing images and then having it turn into these moving images or moving
Yeah.
video walkthroughs without them having to actually film the walkthrough.
Yes, I've seen a few companies trying to do this.
So this is, I downloaded both of these photos from Unsplash, so just a picture of an interior this time. So let's run it. And when we originally got this workflow, there were some parts that seemed to be just dead nodes, like they were half connected, but they had no output. So on our version of this on InstaSD, we've gone ahead and removed those completely. So what you'll get is just the core flux context part. But there was an element here that was trying to use the Florence models to basically create a longer prompt for flux context and create the scene around it based on that. And arguably, if we had that still plugged in and overrode it with what we wanted, we could just control the environment a little bit better. Okay, there we go. Actually, I just noticed that in both cases, it's kind of created this blur in the middle. I hadn't noticed this one before when I was playing with it, but this just happened in the previous image as well, right?
The one that you thought the image itself had a blur in it.
Yeah, yeah. This because I'm pretty sure when I ran this before, I didn't notice that part. Not sure, but okay. So with this one, it's done a pretty good job. But what I've noticed also is like right around the parts where it needs to stitch it is a little bit weird. So let's look at what the 3D looks like.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
interesting. You're
just
right.
added
There is a
this.
blur.
Yeah, not sure what is happening there because that's the original image. It should be the sharpest point. You can see with the leaves, it's a little bit. Everything is a little blurry. I did not notice this before in my experimentation.
Maybe a second pass or it's a very small room.
Yeah. And then like when with something like a chair in that edge, it can't really merge it properly. Yeah, I think I got much better results with this before I tried to demo it, which is maybe the curse of the demo. But this interesting the way that it's doing these like shadow effects here. I'm not sure what happened.
All right. Well, maybe others can play around with it and let us know if they get better results and how to improve it.
Yeah.
But that's a solid starting point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that with a little bit of tweaking, these artifacts can be removed.
Play around with panorama generation with Flux a while back, and Flux itself is very good at generating panoramic images.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing we wanted to talk about is this blog post on OpenAI written by Calvin French Owen, who was previously the founder of Segment. Do you remember Segment, Milad? We used it in our previous
Yes.
startup.
Yeah, we use it quite a bit.
And he went and worked for OpenAI for just over a year, I think, and just left recently and wrote a little bit about what working at OpenAI is like, which I always found interesting because, particularly if you're a founder of, you're used to building companies, it's interesting how different organizational structures work, different team dynamics work, particularly these iconic businesses that we all look at, right?
Right. It's kind of interesting in the sense that OpenAI itself is quite young.
Right.
So sure enough, it's like a very well-known name, and because it's grown so fast, but it is still a startup in my opinion. It's just a
Yeah.
very rapidly growing startup. So it would have been very interesting to go from Segment, a much smaller startup, to a startup that's size-wise is like a big corp, but it probably
Yeah.
doesn't have the same structure as a big corp in place.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that's interesting. And I wonder how long they can keep this sort of thing going. Because one of the things that he talks about is how decentralized everything is and kind of driven from bottom up and kind of things happening on a dime. So, one of the things that stood out to me in this post was him talking about how they change their mind really fast. They don't wait for quarterly planning meetings, or if some team is about to ship something and they need like two engineers to come from some other project and work on this. Is not There's not like a political, back and forth that needs to happen among the
Right.
managers to be able to get the resources. Like the next day, the talent that they need, which is like very experienced engineers, are available. They're ready to jump in, which is not something I would expect from a company of this size.
Yeah, it
But
sounds
I
like
would
it's
expect
still.
it from a company of this age.
Yes, I feel like the researchers are still kind of running the show for the most part. That's what it sounds like. Or the people that the builders are still running it. The risk and the middle management hasn't made it there yet,
Right.
or kept them up for so long.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It's rare to find a company of this size that has this kind of dynamic, and also it's an opportunity to see how much of the things that we consider best practices are really necessary, which I always find interesting because I think in our experience we found a lot of things that the tech industry generally preaches as best practices are questionable at best. And so some of the things that he mentioned here is everything in their code base is a monolith. Everything is in a single repo, and things are apparently breaking all the time. And I guess like one part of my takeaways from that is like, yeah, if that's happening to OpenAI, probably in your startup, it's fine. Just don't
It's
worry about it and ship
totally
things.
fine. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of best practices. I mean, they are meant for. They're not really meant for startups. I believe. I truly believe that. I think they're written by people that work at a safe place that has tons of resources and as much time as they need, so they can take the time and implement every single one of these best practices. Which sure they're great, but you're not going to be able to run a fast growing startup if you're doing every little safe and right
Yeah.
practice for your code base or the way you run your team and all that.
Yeah, to your point, I think that a lot of these best practices are written for those middle managers to keep the boat steady, to make sure
Exactly. Yeah.
everything is explainable to the managers above them.
Yeah. And a way to find some KPIs and show progress in different
Yeah,
places, right?
yeah. So I thought this was an interesting read. I will link to it in the show notes, and listeners can go
Yeah.
have a gander if they find this sort of thing interesting.
I found it a lot more positive than I thought.
Yeah,
Anytime
exactly.
somebody writes an open letter, especially somebody that has just left the company, I would expect it to not be so positive.
100%. Yeah,
And it's coming from the founder, it actually gives it more credibility
exactly.
because their expectation would have been a lot higher going in, and it's a lot easier to make a founder extremely annoyed in a
Right,
big corp, right?
right.
Doesn't take much.
It does take much, but that what it takes is comes very naturally to big corporations.
Yeah, I mean that is how they work. And as a founder of a small corp, you go to a big corp, you gonna run into those issues like almost immediately. Unfortunately, to on a positive note and say the culture was good and things were kind of better than he expected, and not at like a big corp, even with the size, is I hope they can keep it that way for as long as they can.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for this week. See you in a week from now.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and see you in a week.